Sure, a couple questions. I agree with you, Dr. Gupta, that I think whenever anybody takes heroin, and as I understand it, everybody who takes it knows people who's died from it, there's an element, suicide's too strong a word, but at least you're saying that it's not the end of the world if I die. And that's a problem. I think it was Dr. Parka who told, one of the two of you in your original testimony, and I didn't see it in your written testimony, said the number of people in this country every year who are prescribed some sort of painkillers that could be described as opiates. Could you repeat that statistic again?
Sure. So it's this is the National Survey on Drug Use and Health in 2016. So 91.8 million American adults, nearly 4 in 10, say they've used opioids in the preceding 12 months. Now, that could be that they were prescribed or they're misusing. And the misusing number is 11.5. So 11.5 million Americans are misusing opioids. So either they didn't have a prescription in the first place, they got it from family, friends, or they had a prescription.
Could you tell us the equivalent number from other countries?
I think, unfortunately, Congressman, this is a uniquely American problem. We have 5% of the world's population. We consume 80% of the world's opioids.
Wow. So that would show it's an American problem, and it shows that other countries don't seem to have this problem. So you wonder what they're doing differently. Have we looked into at all the background of the average heroin user? Do we ever study, family background, religious background, what have you?
Other panelists may want to jump in, but I think one statistic that's important to note is if you look at first-time heroin users, 80% of them first started abusing prescription opioids, and I think that is a critical
Okay,
piece.
but I mean, do we have anything else, though, as far as, demographic examples, family background, educational background, age? Do we have those statistics, Mr. Gupta?
Yes, Congressman. We conducted an autopsy a social autopsy of everyone who died in 2016 in West Virginia from overdose. What we found was typically individuals are 35 to 54 years old, male, high school educated or less, single, and working in blue-collar industry. So this is the social autopsy.
Single people, what about their parents? What do we find out about their parents?
Well, I think what we find is basically it's one of those situations of hope. It's a social.
No, not hope. But what was their background? What type of family background do the people?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Put enough money into it. You should next time you do a study, you should check into that. At least I felt heroin's been around this country a long time, and there was a time of stigma against taking heroin. I mean, there was a bright line, I think, between alcohol and marijuana, or even cocaine and heroin. And I know there's been a lot of emphasis on removing the stigma. Are you sure we want to remove that stigma? There used to be a stigma, and I think at the time there was a stigma unless people took heroin. But are you sure we want to remove that stigma?
Congressman, I'll give you an example. Saw an 71-year-old woman living with her children living with her. Mm-hmm. Every time she started to use heroin for post-herpetic neuralgia, that's pain after you get shingles, because the doctor took her off the Percocet, and she uses 3 syringes. First time she injects small bolus dose, second a bigger dose to make sure there's not enough fentanyl to kill her, and then she gives herself the main dose. And that's all because she actually trusts her dealer. So yeah, there's a lot of that because she wouldn't go and get help because she thinks her family will find out, and it would be a bad thing for people to know a 71-year-old is using heroin. So there's a tremendous amount of stigma.
I'll give you another question. I recently had something in my district in which a member of law enforcement was very concerned. Somebody was pulled over with a substantial amount of heroin, clearly a dealer, and they were given time served or something. It really bothered the law enforcement person because these people are probably, as dangerous as can be. I know we're stuck on kind of a trend of saying too many people are in prison, and there may be too many people in prison, but to me, heroin and related drugs are a new thing. I am very concerned on hearing stories, and particularly more liberalish areas, of people who are dealers not really going to prison for a long period of time. And I know in other countries that don't have these problems, who are not as, so afraid to put somebody away, they don't have these heroin problems either. Do you think usually the police aren't the problem, the police want to put them away, but do you think our judges or the rest of the judicial system is getting too involved in this treatment stuff and are not sending a strong enough message to the dealers by putting them away for long periods of time since they are killing so many people?
The gentleman's out of time, but you may answer his question.
Congressman, I think there's a distinction to be made between dealers, which obviously are bad guys and need every year that they can be in prison for, versus the folks who are actually gotten into this and don't understand it and have something called substance use disorder or opioid use disorder that actually need help, and they can be productive. It's because the majority of people we're dealing with, they're actually workers. They're working age populations, and we're losing worker productivity in this country at a rate like never before.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman.
I'll just point out he didn't answer my question, but okay.
Gentleman yields back. My friend from Vermont is recognized.